Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. After a short interval, we are resuming our classes on the Mahabharata, Indian philosophy values. So today we are going to discuss a very interesting aspect of the philosophy values based on these two great epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana, primarily based on Mahabharata. So in the Mahabharata, as most of you know, the archetypal evil character is Duryodhana. So we can find some very interesting discussions, deliberations on the problem of evil in the Mahabharata. It is found through the entire classic. The entire classic is filled with dialogues centered around the nuances or subtle principles of Dharma and Adharma, that is, right and wrong, the virtue and the vice, and the problem that people frequently encounter in their life, in individual life, in family life, because family life is an important focus in the Mahabharata. Same family with two different branches, that's the setting in the Mahabharata. So the archetypal evil character in the Mahabharata is Duryodhana. There are many others, but he is the central figure of the problem of evil. And to understand the mystery of this person's character, we can quote a well-known verse which is frequently quoted, found in some lesser-known versions of editions of Mahabharata, but not in the mainstream critical edition brought out by the Baroda manuscripts or Vidya Bhavans, or there are certain Chaukamba, there are certain Gita Press Gorakhpur. There are certain standard editions, including the well-known critical edition of Mahabharata. And you don't find this particular verse, but it is found in some local versions, editions of Mahabharata. And this verse I already quoted on a few occasions earlier. Janami dharmam nachame pravritti, janami adharmam nachame pravritti, yatha rishikesha hridisthidena, yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. This is the verse. It's a very interesting verse. So here is a very greedy person, full of ambition, very ruthless, a kind of Machiavellian character, so to speak. And he says, he puts the entire blame of all his evil doing on some mysterious phenomenon called samskaras. And he called Janami dharmam nachame pravritti. I know what is dharma, but I'm helpless, I cannot really practice it. He's a hypocrite. In fact, in the Nilagandi and many other commentaries, there are strong observations about the hypocrisy, the self-deception of Duryodhana. He says he knew that what he was doing was wrong, but he cannot desist. He cannot prevent himself from doing that. And what was he doing that we are going to discuss in the Mahabharata? Udyoga Parva. Those who know the text with you, the original text, Udyoga Parva, chapter 58, contains a very powerful sentences, verses, some kind of a dialogue between his own father, Dhritarashtra, the blind old king, and his evil son, Duryodhana. How this helpless old man is trying to put some wisdom, some sense of righteousness into the head of his unscrupulous son. And he uses some very strong language. Remember, Dhritarashtra was fully aware of the fact that his own son was a wicked fellow. I don't know, that's a very important aspect of this character, Dhritarashtra. On the one hand, he was helpless, But he had a higher transcendental vision of what dharma is. He didn't blindly support his own son. Frequently, when we are obsessed with the failure relationship, then we interpret whatever those whom we like, to whom we are attached, what they are doing is dharma, and what is opposed to what they are doing, what your own near and dear ones are doing, that is adharma. That is the normal tendency. But even this old king was helpless because he was blind. He himself makes a very powerful statement. Duryodhana nivartasva yuddhat bharadasattama. Duryodhana, you turn away from this war, which is going to destroy the entire Kaurava race. Yuddhat bharadasattama nahi yuddham prashamsanti sarvavastam arindama. So nobody wants war. You should try to you should move away from this greed and this tendency to fight, which is going to cause the destruction of the entire tribe, the Kuru tribe. So Dhritarashtra, though he was helpless in controlling, restraining his own evil children, he himself was not blinded by his affection. So he had a very transcendental vision of what propriety is, what dharma is, what righteousness is. So you can find, because he was himself advised by Vidura, one of the great wise men of Mahabharata. Vidura and Bhishma are the two wise men in the Mahabharata. Bhishma, again, he was powerful, he was a wise man, but he was helpless. Vidura was wise, but he could detach himself from evil. Bhishma indirectly had to be on the side of adharma. So we are coming to the subject. So Duryodhana says he knows what dharma is, but he cannot prevent himself from being drawn towards it. And janami adharmam nachame nivrutti. He knows what is adharma, what is wickedness, what is wise, but he cannot keep himself away from it. He knows what dharma, but he cannot practice it. Janami dharma nachame pravritti. I know dharma, but I cannot practice it. Janami adharmam nachame nivrutti. I know what is adharma, but I cannot keep myself away from it. So this helplessness. I know what is dharma. Janami dharmam. Dharmam janami. But nachame pravritti. But I cannot practice it. I cannot really implement the principles of dharma in my own life. And janami adharma, I know adharma. I know what is opposed to dharma. Nachame nivrutti. I cannot desist myself. I cannot keep myself away from it. Because my samskaras, my tendencies, my impressions, my own inherent characteristics draw me towards adharma, and my own inherent characteristics do not permit me to practice dharma. That's helplessness. So then he gives yatha rishikesha hridisthidena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. Oh Lord, you are sitting in my heart. There, he's referring to a verse in the Mahabharata, but it comes in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter. Ishvara sarvabhudanam hridesi Arjuna tishtadi brahmayan sarvabhudani yantrarudhani maya. Devil quoting the scripture, an example. There is an important statement in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It says, Lord Krishna says, God is the indweller, the inner spark, Antaryami we call in Sanskrit, the indweller, the inherent, the immanent reality that is present in everyone, in everything. And as the indweller in everything, God is regulating, controlling this entire creation. That's the meaning. So he says, "Oh Lord, you are sitting in my heart. I am helpless. So I am not to blame. I should not be blamed for what terrible things I am doing because you are making me do all these things. Because you are sitting in my heart." So all these you find, in fact, the commentators and later writers have criticized this idea of this concept, this verse of Duryodhana as indicative of his own self-deception. Now we are entering the text, and after discussing some verses at the beginning of this 58th chapter, Adhyaya, it was 58th chapter, Udyoga Parva of Mahabharata. So beginning is Dhritarashtra Uvacha. I mean, Dhritarashtra is speaking, the blind king is speaking. Kshatradeja brahmachari kaumaradavi pandavaha tena samyugameshinti manda vilapato mama. He says, actually he is praising Duryodhana's adversary. So Dhritarashtra, the blind king, the father of the Kauravas and the father of Duryodhana, of course, is addressing Duryodhana. And he begins his discourse with a few words of praise, admiration of his born enemy, that is Yudhishthira. Duryodhana's enemy is Yudhishthira. He says Yudhishthira is full of Brahmateja. He is full of vigor, spiritual vigor. From his very boyhood, he had practiced higher spiritual values. But his own son, he is addressing my own son, that is Duryodhana. He is such a murkha. Manda means you call him idiot. He had not practiced any of these values. So you can imagine the greatness of a helpless father who had the misfortune to live with his own sons who were stupid and evil and greedy, and addressing his own eldest son, he speaks, your enemy, Yudhishthira, is such a wonderful man who had practiced Dharma right from his younger days, but yourself is just the opposite of it. Then he makes this well-known statement, Duryodhana nivartasva. Duryodhana, you don't make preparations for this war. Yuddhat bharata sattama. Yuddhat nivartasva. Nahi yuddham prashamsandi sarvavastam arindama. So nobody is praising war. Remember one important point, I am going to that again. The purpose of this discussion is to explore the nuances of different aspects, the dynamics of what Dharma actually means in national life and social life. We are not portraying Dhritarashtra as the archetypal representative of Dharma. In fact, Dhritarashtra was wrong in some of his own ideas, understanding of Dharma. To understand Dharma, you have to go to Lord Krishna. Krishna makes an important point, and that's what we will discuss in course of time. Krishna says, I mentioned this on a few occasions, suppose you are living in this world and you have two options. Both are undesirable options. One is lesser evil, that is, you have to do something to destroy, to weaken the evil person. The other is greater evil, that is, to move away from it. So if your inaction, so-called ahimsa, leads to greater evil, then that inaction, that practice of non-violence itself will become in effect an act of greater violence. That's what Lord Krishna is going to say. So he is talking about what you call so Krishna's interpretation of Dharma is context related, is consequential. In other words, Krishna defines Dharma as righteous action that sustains cosmic order. and social harmony. So the word used is loka sangraham. So loka sangraham involves sustaining, preserving the cosmic order. Some degree of stability, some degree of harmony should prevail, then only human life becomes possible. For that you have to do certain things. And that action may involve some violence, but that action of violence will be much lesser evil because the opposite of it will be far greater. So that's why Krishna's understanding of dharma is ahimsa driven by selfless duty and welfare of all beings and sustaining the cosmic order and not physical inactivity. So that's why Lord Krishna makes a point, purvaihi anugato bhavo devaihi asuraghadibhihi dharmischa anugata phanda sa sarvaihi anugamyate. There's a very, very famous statement in the Mahabharata. Philosophically, it's very profound. In fact, this can be an answer for diplomats, politicians, sociologists, anthropologists, everyone. Because there is something that we have to do to make sure that the entire cosmic order will not be disturbed. And that may involve some activity which may involve some unpleasant action. But that action is driven by the desire to keep the cosmic order intact, which is called loka sangraham, for the good of the world. Again, I cannot resist the temptation to quote the Treaty of Appeasement, 1938. The treaty that the Allied forces, Allied powers, Britain, France, Lord Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of Britain, France, Diderot, and of course Mussolini of Italy, and Adolf Hitler himself of Germany. There was a treaty. In that treaty, France and Britain agreed with Hitler, allowed him to attack certain land, which is part of Czechoslovakia, and Hitler was given the permission to start an act of violence, and Britain and France could have prevented that. But they resorted to ahimsa. To avoid a possible war, they allowed Hitler to start what later became the beginning of the Second World War, the annexation of certain land, and which later led to the invasion of Czechoslovakia, Poland, and what we don't have to go beyond that. So Krishna does something in the Mahabharata. On many, many occasions, it may call it strategic, tactical action, which involved some unpleasant action. For example, Krishna had to intervene and use some subtle strategy and tactics to destroy some of the great soldiers on the Kaurava side who were fighting for Duryodhana. And if Krishna had not resorted to those actions, Duryodhana, the evil forces of Mahabharata would have become victorious. So, to sustain a cosmic order, you have to do something, and that automatically becomes dharma. So whatever you do for sustaining the universal good of humanity, sustain the cosmic order, it automatically becomes dharma. So a ruler, an administrator has to protect justice and ensure the well-being of society. So ethical decisions should be guided by true justice and, more importantly, according to Krishna, collective welfare. That is very important. Loka sangraham. So Duryodhana's idea of dharma was based on greed, ambition, power, exploitation, every conceivable kind of injustice. So he wanted power. And Duryodhana thought dharma can be flexible. Dharma can be manipulated. by greed, jealousy, ego, and so on. That's why Duryodhana says that he won't allow the Pandavas even a little bit of land. I shall quote that important verse, which is very historically very important. There is one verse in the Mahabharata, please remember, again if you are interested, Mahabharata, Udyoga Parvam, chapter 58. There it says, Yavat hi sujas tikshnaya vidyed agrena marisha tavadabi abharityajam bhumehe na pandavan prati. You know what Duryodhana tells? Krishna first went on an embassy to somehow come to a truce, so to avoid the war. Krishna wanted to prevent this warfare between Kauravas and Pandavas. And then Vidura was there, Dhritarashtra was there, Bhishma was there, Drona was there, and also Duryodhana accompanied by Dushasana and Karna. They were all there. So first they asked Duryodhana, why don't you give half the kingdom to the Pandavas? Alam ardham prithivyaste sagam amatyasya jivitum prayacha pandaputranam yadochidam arindava. So Dhritarashtra is telling his own son, see, alam artham prithivyaste. For you to live, to be able to live happily in all comforts with your ministers, with your brothers, half a kingdom is enough. Give the other half to Pandavas. They have taken, they have confiscated the entire kingdom through unfair means, the Kauravas, Duryodhana. So the old man, blind man, the father tells Duryodhana, Alam ardham prithivyaste. Half of this earth, this kingdom, is enough for you to be able to live with happiness, comforts, with all your friends and relatives and ministers and others. Prayacha Pandaputranam. No, the other half you give to Pandaputras. And then they came down, well, if you are not willing to give half the kingdom, give half 5 villages, five brothers, 5 villages. Duryodhana said no. Give one house where they can all live together, maybe 1 apartment, 5 rooms. Duryodhana said no. And then give one house, no. Then you know what Duryodhana says? Yavat ki sujas tikshnaya vidyet agrena marisha tavat tabi aparityajam bhume na pandavan prati. What he says? Sujyagra parimanam means I won't give them even enough land to be covered by the point of a needle. So that's a statement is this. That is, I won't allow them even enough land. That means Duryodhana refused to yield even enough land to hold the point of a needle. Sujyagramiva. Sujyagramiva nadasyami. So I won't allow them even that much land where you can point a needle. That was Duryodhana's answer. As a result, you know what happened? There was this war. So so that dialogue is very important. Edat hi Kuravat sarve manyante dharma samhidam yatvam prashantim manyetha panduputrai mahatmapihi. He says. Now, all these people, good people, virtuous people, they're all with Pandavas because they know you have done an injustice to them. So you can imagine how Duryodhana eventually, blinded by greed, he won't let the Pandavas have even 1 village, 5 houses or 1 house. Yeshu Sambradhistheyu Kurava Pidida pidita parehi te yuddham nabhinantanti tatubhyam tada rochadam. So this discussion continues. Dhritarashtra continues till nattum karoshi kamena karna karidatava dushasanascha papatma sagunischavi saubalaha. And the father, the old man, tells Duryodhana, I know that you are not behind these preparations for war. You are tempted, you are prompted by evil men like Dushasana and Karna, Shaguni and others. So the old man Dhritarashtra goes on advising. And Duryodhana replies, Naham bhavadi na drone, na shwathatmani na sanchaye, na bhishme, na cha kamboje, na kribe, na baklike. He says, I don't want to blame any of them. I don't blame either Drona, Bhishma or Sanjaya or the king of Cambodia or Baklika. I am myself responsible for all the actions. And then Duryodhana makes a terrible statement which is very notorious in the entire Mahabharata war. So we have to understand the wisdom of Krishna against the background of all these things that happened at the back of the story. So when you read the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says, well, you cannot remain inactive. When there is an injustice going on, it's part of your responsibility to face the injustice, to resist the injustice. And if you think that without resisting the injustice, if you run away from your responsibility as a soldier, and if you imagine that itself is a great spiritual activity, you're totally wrong, because you cannot solve the problems of action by running away from action. That's what Lord Krishna is in the Bhagavad Gita. So frequently when you read the Bhagavad Gita, beginning to end, the beginning of the 28th verse of the first chapter, where Arjuna expresses his total helplessness. Dushtvevam sujanam Krishna yusumava samavastidam sidanti mamagatrani muhancha parishishyadi vebhadusi sarire me roma hasasya jayade gandivam samsdegas tattva chaiva paridakhyade. 28th verse of the first chapter, where Arjuna is expressing his total helplessness when he was called upon to do his duty as a soldier, to fight injustice, to fight cruelty, to fight adharma, on behalf of and for the safety of Pandavas and other people. So Krishna tells him eventually in the subsequent chapters, Arjuna, if you run away from your responsibility, from your duty, which is part of your dharma, that means an action necessary for sustaining cosmic order, sustaining order in society and community. And if by that action, if you believe that you can avoid the problems of action, by running away from action, you are totally wrong. The only solution is you should act, but act without any attachment for the good of the world. That is Loka Sangraham. That is Krishna's definition of Dharma. Loka Sangraham. So if we can think of the sustenance and preservation of cosmic order, and when whatever we do, if that is going to contribute to the sustenance of the cosmic order, that is Dharma. If our inaction indirectly happens to disturb the cosmic order, as Navy Chamberlain's inaction caused the beginning of the Second World War, 1938, which really happened, it disturbed the cosmic order by inaction, the Treaty of Appeasement. I am giving this example, there are many examples because it's so spectacular. And it's part of European history, European heritage, maybe part of modern history. There are very many examples from European history and also from Indian history. But this is the archetypal example of a Yudhishthira entering into treaty with Hitler. Navy Chamberlain treaty with Hitler, 1938. And that was the beginning of the Pandora's box. It was the beginning of this entire disturbance and turmoil of the cosmic order. So, and the same Gita presents before us another picture of Arjuna. After 18 chapters, to the end of the 18th chapter, Nashto Moha Smridil Labdha Taprasadat Maya Achyuda Sthidosmi Gata Sandeha Karishi Vachanam Tava. Arjuna, who says in the 28th chapter of the first chapter, in 28th verse of the first chapter, verse number 28 of the first chapter, where he expresses his total helplessness, Drishtvaimam Sujanam Krishna, etc. And he says that he is not willing to do anything. That Arjuna concludes the dialogue in the Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter. Now I am free from all my delusions, all my confusions. Karishe Vachanam Tava, Tava Vajanam Karishe. I shall act according to your instruction. So what was the transformation that happened in the mind of Arjuna? Arjuna first thought that inaction is the solution for the problems of action. But later he learned that action without desire, action for loka sangraha, is the only solution to the problems of action. Do everything for the good of others. So, in this context, the reason why I'm mentioning all this, Krishna's solution to the problem of evil is do whatever is needed for the preservation of the good of the world, for the universal good, not for the temporary, not for personal good as Duryodhana was doing, for the good of everyone. So whatever is needed in the interest of the entire world, you do, and that is Dharma. And our own contribution to the universal good is Swadharma, one Swadharma. And you will understand the importance of that statement when you again listen to the terrible things that Duryodhana is telling about his rivalry, his competition, his bloodthirsty greed when he addresses his own father, Dhritarashtra. Aham cha tada karnascha rana yajnam vidatya vai yudhishtiram pashum krutva dikshido bharadashabha. These are very, very moving statements. That is verse number 12 of the Udyoga Parva, 58th chapter. Duryodhana says, Aham cha tada karnascha rana yajnam vidatya vai. Father, we are going to start a yajna, a sacrifice, a Vedic ritual. What a distorted idea. And Yudhishtiram Pashum Krutva is in ancient times, in the Vedic times, as part of the ritual, Vedic ritual, they had to sacrifice an animal. And that animal should be sacrificed in the name of some celestial being, Deva, Devadas, and so on. You can find this kind of Pashu Bali is called, in ancient Vedic rituals. Nowadays it's banned in India, but it used to be in practice till the beginning of 20th century in many parts of India. Now it is completely legally banned. It is unconstitutional to do that. And you know what Duryodhana is telling? Aham cha tada karnascha. Karna and I together, we have now taken a vow to perform a yajna, a Vedic sacrifice. In that sacrifice, we will sacrifice Yudhishthira as instead of making sacrifice of animal like cow, like a goat or something. We will sacrifice Yudhishthira. Yudhishtiram Pashum Krutva Dikshido Bharadasabha. We have taken a vow. Like, when you take a vow for performing yajna, Gadiratra, Agni, Vajapeya, all these yajnas and yagas, you have to take a vow. You have to practice certain vratas, certain vows. And we have taken a vow. What are we going to do? We are going to make a sacrifice of Yudhishthira. This is what Duryodhana is telling. You know why I am mentioning this? people frequently criticize Krishna for supporting Pandavas. Krishna himself did his best to avoid this war. In fact, the one man who did the most in the Mahabharata was Krishna, who did everything possible to avoid the bloodshed, the Mahabharata war. But he could not. He did not succeed. More than even other elders like Bhishma, Vidura and others, Krishna was the one who ran an embassy. He went to the Kaurava's court and discussed. And sometimes he was insulted even by Kauravas. And then only he told Arjuna, no, there is no other way, you should do your duty. So people frequently misinterpret in a very, very laughable way and say that Bhagavad Gita is a book of warfare. Bhagavad Gita is actually a book of peace and wisdom. Because the advice given by Krishna to Arjuna, you should not run away from battlefield. Bhayad, Ranat, Ubaradam, Mamsindetva, Maharada, Yesha Chattum Bahumadu, Bhutva Yasyasi Lakhavam. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, if you run away from battlefield, you will become small, you will be belittled. Bhayat, Ranat, Ubaradam, out of fear, if you run away from battlefield, people will make fun of you, you will be small, you will be belittled by your friends, other Pandavas, and also by Kauravas, your enemies. That's what Krishna tells. So people quoting on this will tell you, oh, in the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is asking Arjuna to fight. Though Arjuna wanted to run away from battlefield, Arjuna was trying to run away from battlefield because he was frightened to face a difficult situation. So Krishna says, you are going to fight against men like Duryodhana, Dushasana, who insulted women folk. Terrible things they did. So so to face them, that's your duty. And Krishna says this after having failed in his every attempt to bring about peace and harmony between the two branches of the same family. Aham chatada karnaschas ranayajnam vidatyavai yudhishtiram pashum krutva dikshido bharadashabha. And then he goes on describing, very unpleasant to read, but to understand the greatness of Krishna and the actual context of Bhagavad Gita, one should read these verses. Otherwise you won't understand. So he says, Ratho Vedi, Survak Khadgo, Gada Svuk, Kavajo Ajinam, Chadurhotram, Chadhurya, Meshara, Darbha, Havir Yashakha. So, for performing the Vedic ritual, you need a Vedi, a place prepared for performing this Yajna Yaga. And then for that you need Sruva, you need Darbha, some sacred grass, and you need certain spoons-like things specially prepared. If those who are interested and they are interested in knowing certain things related to this, you can read Fritz Stahl's well-known classic 2 volumes, huge volume. Each volume is as big as Encyclopedia Britannica. Fritz Stahl wrote this Agni, the altar fire, the ancient Vedic sacrifices, where they used to prepare different spoons made of specially designed kinds of wood. They used to prepare Sruva, Sruk, etc. So they needed all these to perform yajna. They will take ghee, milk, cooked rice, millet in those days, and offer to different devas and devatas. Indraya Swaha, Idam Namama, it's not for me to offer to Indra, Varuna, Agni, all this. For that they need these small little spoon-like things, Sruk, Sruva, etc. And Duryodhana says, in our Vedic ritual, our sword will be Sruk. And Gada will be another kind of small little spoon. Instead of spoon, or mace. Instead of Sruva, spoon, or Khadga. And instead of Darbha is a kind of sacred grass, we will have arrows. So he's actually making a very, very graphic description of what terrible things he was planning to do. And again, in the subsequent chapters also, many other elders tried to prevent him from going ahead with these terrible things, but Duryodhana stuck to his plan. Chadurhotram chadurya me shara darbha haviryasha atmagyenan nripade ishtva vaivasudam brane vijitya sameshwavu hada mitro sriya prudau. And he's dreaming. He says, Karna and myself will take up this yajna, this sacrifice. That is killing and destroying the entire Pandavas. And this is our Atma Yajna. And then we will please the Lord of Death. And then finally, after conquering and destroying all our enemies, we will enjoy this kingdom with the help of the goddess of wealth, power and everything. And we will come back to the capital city. Aham chatada karnascha bhrada dushasanascha me ede vayam ghanishyama pandavan samares trayaha. Again he continues. So, but I don't want to go further in this. But the essence of what he is trying to drive home is compressed, summarized in this well-known verse which comes later. That is, Tyaktam me jividam rajyam dhanam sarvam cha parthiva najadu pandavai sardham vaseyam ahamachyuda. He is addressing his own father, the old man. He says, I have given up everything. My kingdom, my wealth and everything, confers everything, my life. But I can never give up my hatred, my hostility towards Pandavas. These are the words of Duryodhana. So now you will understand why Krishna prompted Arjuna to go ahead and do his duty as a soldier. And after that comes the next well-known verse I already quoted, Yavatki suchya stikshnaya vidyed agrena marisha tavadabi aparityajam bhumehi na pandavan pati. So I won't give them even that much of land which will be enough for a needle point. You cannot even put a needle point on the earth. That needs only a small, tiny, immeasurably small bit of land for a needle point. But that much land I am not to give the Pandavas. He was requested first at the beginning to part with half the kingdom. That's how his father started the dialogue. Duryodhana, so okay. Alam ardham prathivyaste saha amatyasya jivitam. You give half the kingdom to them. After all, the whole kingdom belonged to Pandavas actually. You have taken away, grabbed it from them. Not by fighting, not through manliness, but by gambling, playing dice in a deceptive manner, in a wrong, against the rules and regulations, gambling. That's how they grabbed the entire kingdom from Pandavas. So father tells him, Duryodhana, half a kingdom is enough for you and your family, your brothers and also your ministers will live comfortably. The other half you give. And later he told, all right, if you are not willing to give half the kingdom, 5 villages, 1 house. And the answer was not even a needle top of a land, needle point of a land am I going to give him. I am going to give everything, but I will never give anything to Pandavas. This is the background, and I think not a very pleasant, so I won't go further with this topic. We can have interaction. The background is created for us to understand the actual relevance of Krishna's concept of Dharma. You find in Krishna a very complex, very wise character. The man who did everything possible for bringing peace in the world. Finally, when he did not succeed, what he did, he wanted to make sure that the evil doesn't succeed. If you cannot avoid war, the next thing you can do is to make sure that the evil does not succeed. Dharma will be preserved. It's a very interesting, it's a very, very famous part of the entire classic. Now we can have interaction. You are most welcome. Okay. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. The first question that comes to my mind while awaiting additional questions is you've made the point that the discernment is made between perpetrating evil and selecting the lesser evil of blocking the advance of the evil that is impending.
Yeah.
It's an intransigent evil in this case.
Yeah.
Because Duryodhana is saying, not even the point of a needle.
Yeah.
Will never give up my hate.
Yeah.
And it sounds pretty severe, and it sounds very consistently difficult.
You know, so, I tell you, excuse me, Suchyagramiva dasyami. Suchyagra means the point of a suchi means a needle. Yes. I won't give them that much land where you can put a needle point. Suchyagram iva nadasyami. Please continue. Wonderful question. Please continue.
At the risk of a pun, his point is very clear.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of rhetoric in the world about selecting the lesser evil against the terrible foe. But you made a point about the reference to the cosmic order.
Yeah.
So my question has to do with the loka. You use the Sanskrit for the cosmic order.
Yeah.
Loka.
Loka sangraha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loka sangraha. And so that actually helps us discern between the evil and the lesser evil that we may be compelled to take against the evil.
Absolutely.
And this ties to the Hindu theory of loka and the various worlds. That's what I'm asking you about, because because that when you start to say, okay, refer to the cosmic order and what it demands, then it brings the whole theory of the loka into play. So could you expound on that?
Thank you. Very, very relevant question. This is a very important question. So loka could mean lokidedi loka. Loka could mean a place of habitation. 14 lokas. Earth is one of the 14 lokas. Another meaning of loka is people. People also are called loka. People means not only human beings, entire creation. Living beings constitute loka. So then it is a congregational name, the entire collective name for all living beings together is loka. So the well-being of all living beings in this world, a kind of emphasizing or maintaining social order by preserving righteousness, so that harmony, moral responsibility, preservation of dharma, all will be guaranteed. So that's the actual meaning of loka here, I mean living beings. Because in reality, the problem of dharma is it could be stretched, and it's very elastic, can be stretched in any direction you want. That's one problem with dharma taken as a constitution, as a law, legal principle. But when you try to link it to the good of the world, then there is greater logic in trying to understand it. as a kind of ethical moral system. No one can contribute to the social order, the cosmic order, but doing something wrong. But at the same time, a person can justify what he is doing, maybe very wrong, he can justify it. But you can tell, well, it may be okay for you, but it is not good for the world. So you can try to limit his scope for stretching his own understanding of Dharma in all directions. It gives a logical focus, a moral, an ethical focus. When you say whatever you are doing should be loka sangraha, for the good of others, for the good of the world. So, in the context of Krishna, I am giving this example. If you look at Mahabharata, Krishna did a lot of things, not too many, quite a few things, which may not be entirely justified if you are on the side of the Duryodhana. For example, Yudhishthira was a good man, but he was not we can't say he is a very wise man. He was wise, but his wisdom was frequently lopsided because he could not understand the cosmic dimension of Dharma. To give an example, when his own wife were being insulted in the Kaurava's court, he kept quiet. And he said that his wife, it was not his duty because his wife was already gambled out. No, I don't want to do those these terrible things. One of the most humiliating, one of the most heinous crimes in any world literature. And Yudhishthira found a justification for keeping quiet. So you can see that happening. And a relatively ignorant man, a good man, Vikarna, one of the youngest of the Kauravas, he was, no, you are doing something terribly wrong. He did that. But this man, he is a philosopher, Yudhishthira, highly learned person, he kept quiet. That's why Krishna did not teach him Bhagavad Gita. Because whatever Krishna was going to teach him, he already knew in theory, but he cannot put in practice. Krishna was looking for somebody who can understand intellectually what he was going to teach, but also have the courage and wisdom and the dynamism, the Rajoguna to practice it. So he chose Arjuna as his disciple, not Yudhishthira. In terms of intellectual understanding, spiritual, you may call it spiritual wisdom, Yudhishthira was certainly the most mature, the wisest man among the Pandavas. But Krishna knew no use teaching him. Well, suppose somebody comes to you and you are trying to correct some of his actions, and you have to bring some logical arguments to prove that the other man is doing something wrong. But suppose he is a far greater attorney, he knows more about law than you yourself. He will convince you, he will try to convince you. So you cannot defeat him as a constitutional expert, because his own constitution scholarship is much greater than yours. So you look for somebody who is not as learned in law, so that that person will be willing to act. And knowing something which is Dharma, and they're ready to act upon the Dharma, that is certainly far better than knowing everything and doing nothing, which was the case with Yudhishthira. I hope my answer is clear.
Very clear. In fact, we have to thank Arjuna for his confusion and his
precisely
original limitations.
Yes, naturally.
Makes him the perfect student.
We learned so much from Gita because one man was totally confused. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
You began today's talk with a quote from Duryodhana, where he says, Janami dharmam and janami adharmam.
Yeah.
Where he says, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I can't help it. Now, can this also be taken as an example of karma? That is, in the broader scheme of things, Duryodhana had to play this role and he had to do this. And therefore, he is not able to stop himself from doing it because he is playing a role.
Karma, you visit karma?
Yes, karma.
Oh yeah, but in
It was his karma to act the way he did.
yeah. You know, there are two ways of looking at this problem. One answer is Duryodhana was very deliberate in expressing his greed and his hostility and his ambition, ruthless desire, search for power. Duryodhana was very deliberate. So he was not helplessly doing something wrong, knowing that it's wrong. So, and again, the verse I mentioned at the very beginning, this verse is not found in the critical edition of Mahabharata, which is standardized edition, because they brought out the critical edition after going through all possible versions of Mahabharata. But this is a verse that is being handed over from generation to generation by teachers. So, that's one thing. But even if you take it as a part of Mahabharata, it only shows the duplicity, the self-deceiving nature of Duryodhana. They're putting
because for example, if you look at the role of Manthara in Ramayana, where she poisons the mind of Kaikeyi to ask for those two bones to send Rama, there is a footnote in Valmiki Ramayana where it says Manthara was sent to perform this role so that Rama would go to the forest and then would kill Ravana. So at one level one can see all of this. I saw people playing a role that they can't resist. It's not like she was a bad person, but she was playing a role. So can we apply the same argument to Duryodhana?
Yeah. This argument will not hold water if you look at Ramayana as a literary classic, which is what Valmiki meant by that. In Valmiki's Ramayana, all characters are human characters, including Rama. Nothing nothing supernatural about him. Nothing celestial about him. Madhyada Purushottama. Konu asmin sampradam loge gunavan kashabirivan dharmajnascha kridajnascha satyavakyo dhravruta, etc. Who is the man living in this world right now, asmin loge, who is full of all noble characteristics, who is compassionate, who is grateful? In a way, number of qualities are listed in that. And the answer given by Narada is Ikshaku Vamsa Prabho Ramo Nama Prakirtideka. That ideal man is Rama, who is known as Rama, who belongs to Ikshaku dynasty, Surya dynasty. So, in that Valmiki Ramayana context, Manthara playing a role as part of a divine drama doesn't occur. It is totally untenable. But in Adhyatma Ramayana and other works, maybe because Adhyatma Ramayana elevates Rama to Param Brahma, not a human being. And there are places where when Rama is about to start his journey to Lanka, Ravana is telling himself, oh, my Lord has incarnated, Rama is going to kill me, so I will get moksha, I will be, Jaya Vijaya, the two gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, Ravana and Kumbhakarma, the old story. So so Ravana says, oh, God has born, and I will soon be joined by him, another incarnation. Like that, he goes on saying. Now, that doesn't apply, that is totally irrelevant when you look upon Ramayana, the original Ramayana as a literary classic. But then subsequently, during the post-Valmiki period, when Ramayana took many incarnations in many regional languages, many Indian vernaculars, including also the 4 South Indian languages, and also in Hindi, the well-known Tulsidas' Ramcharitamanas, which elevates Rama to something far beyond whatever Valmiki must have conceived of him. So there you can see all these things. So maybe, because I am not very familiar, not intimately familiar with Tulsidas' Ramayana, only portions I have read. So it's written in kind of old archaic Hindi, which I am not familiar with, So, but if you look at the original classic known as Valmiki Ramayana, Manthara playing a divine role as part of a divine drama, that is not found, that is not tenable. That's the idea. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Maharaj.
Yeah.
This morning I listened to a lecture by Swami Tattwamayananda of Chicago, and his topic of the lecture was Swadharma.
Swadharma, yeah.
Yeah. So my question is there any difference between the word Dharma or the concept Dharma and Swadharma?
Yeah. So
are they the same or is there a difference?
Yeah, our own application of dharma is swadharma. How dharma is to be practiced or is practiced by individual people in individual context, that is called swadharma. Sosya dharma, that is swadharma. So dharma as part of the cosmic order for the good of the world is one thing. But in what way do I apply that principle in my own individual life situations? My duty, my responsibility, playing different roles in family, society, nation, and so on. In what way am I applying that dharma meant for lokasangraha? How do I apply in my own personal life? That is swadharma. That's all. It's an individual dimension of the cosmic order called dharma. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Hi, Swami.
Yeah.
You mentioned and cited to Neville Chamberlain's capitulation to Hitler in 1938 in Munich.
Yeah.
And as an example, I think of he by capitulating and not fighting, he created more of a problem, and more people were killed by act of cowardice. Now, the analogy with Arjuna is that Arjuna was going to do the same thing, and he was going to act out of fear, not act out of a sense of justice and right and wrong. And Krishna stopped him from doing that. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, you're partly correct. But there is another side to it. In the context of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was about to do that. Arjuna was trying to do a Navy Chamberlain, but Krishna didn't allow him. So Krishna made him act like a Winston Churchill, putting the same analogy. But going back to your analogy, Yudhishthira actually did act like Navy Chamberlain. Yudhishthira. Because there were many occasions in the Mahabharata where he deliberately kept quiet, practiced inaction, as a result of which the Pandavas had to suffer more and more. So in the context of Yudhishthira, he did act like a Navy Chamberlain. In the context of Arjuna, he was able to do that, but Krishna prevented him from doing that. That's it. Is that clear?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for wonderful questions, So I thought that it's a subject that I didn't want to focus too much, and then there is another part of the same subject. But it helps us to understand the dynamics of social responsibilities and also the dynamics of world civilizations, what we should do, what we should not do. Frequently we wrongly interpret certain actions as wrong because we over-contextualize it. We contextualize it too much. We look at the whole thing only from the standpoint of the present moment, with forgetting the past, the history, and forgetting the more universal dimension of many of the principles of Dharma. When you take the entire thing in context, then you have to go to Krishna's definition of Dharma. I mentioned earlier, Purvaihi anugado bhavo devaihi asharaghadibhihi sabbhischa anugada pantha sa sarvaihi anugammyate. What is Dharma? The Dharma that our ancient sages practiced for the preservation of the cosmic order, which all good people try to practice, and that should be practiced by all those who are interested in preserving the cosmic order, stability, so in society, nation, civilization. That's Dharma. That means we should do what is necessary for the good of the world. So the ultimate way, the ultimate way of understanding should be based on understanding in what way it affects or otherwise, or doesn't affect the preservation of cosmic order. If it disturbs the cosmic order, it is adharma. If it promotes cosmic order, it is dharma. Otherwise, every person will have his own understanding and definition of dharma. Duryodhana had his own definitions, you can imagine. I don't think there is any criminal in the world who completely agrees with the lawyer's interpretation of his crime. Every criminal, every wrong person has his own way of understanding and defining and justifying or otherwise of his action. So that's why we have to take it out of the individual context and link it to the cosmic order. Then you can understand Krishna's wisdom. Krishna wanted to interfere in certain situations where his inaction would have resulted in total disaster, cosmic disaster. As intervention, preserved cosmic order. That's it. Thank you for the question. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.